My name is Sloane Hart. I'm 32 years old, and I used to think maturity meant swallowing my discomfort and smiling through it. Miles told me over breakfast, half grinning at his phone instead of at me. So, funny thing. Tessa's getting married. He said it the way people mention rain on a Tuesday. That's nice, I said, scraping eggs I no longer wanted. The coffee was bitter, in a way it hadn't been yesterday. Yeah, about that. He twirled the corner of his napkin, the same nervous tick that, for a long time, I'd mistaken for charm. She asked me to come, as her plus one. I looked up. Her plus one, to her own wedding. Not like that, he said quickly. God, Sloane, don't be dense. Her fiancé's family is traditional. He wanted to show there's no bad blood. Optics. It's just optics. He flashed me the smile that had made me forgive 100 small trespasses. Separate rooms, obviously. Obviously, I said very evenly. Where? Phoenix. A sip of my coffee turned to ash on my tongue. They're covering the flight and hotel. It's a mature thing. Shows we've all moved on. Moved on. I turned the phrase over like a coin, catching light on both faces. So you'll be your ex-girlfriend's date to demonstrate you're not still her boyfriend. You're making it sound worse than it is. The easy laugh. It's literally chicken marsala and some dry speeches. I'll be back Sunday night. I set my mug down carefully, like I was putting away a weapon. Okay, I said. Have fun. He blinked, surprised the door had opened without a fight. Really? You're okay with it? You already said yes, right? What's there to discuss? He packed Thursday. A weekend bag, the cologne I had bought him, the shirt Tessa once said made his eyes look ridiculous. He kissed my cheek like a man clocking out and left for the airport. I watched the Uber pull away and stood in the quiet that followed. Not the kind that smothers, the kind that clarifies. Then I got to work. First, I changed my relationship status to single. 10 minutes later, my phone lit up like a brush fire. I ignored it. Second, I texted Henry. Context. He'd been man of honor at Miles's sister Diana's wedding last year. Long story, modern family. Henry was the organizational backbone and comedic relief. We'd bonded over chafing under optics. Nothing happened, not even a hint. But that night, after a few speeches, Henry had said, sotto voce, Miles has interesting priorities. I had filed the line away and pretended not to understand. Did Miles tell you about the weekend? I wrote. Tessa thing? Henry. Girl, that's wild. Can you do wine instead of coffee? I'm bringing a reality check. By 7 p.m. at Rosa, Henry arrived with the kind of look you wear for funerals and interventions. I told him it was disrespectful, he said, sliding into the booth. He laughed and said you were too secure to care about silly things. He said, what? Oh, yeah. He's been telling everyone you're totally fine with it. You, my friend, are the poster child for modern, unbothered girlfriends. He took my phone when I showed him the screen. 17 missed calls, 2 voicemails, 6 texts, a cheery selfie from an airport bar. Henry leaned back. Good. Let it all ring. He's been walking all over you for years. I opened my mouth to argue and swallowed the words. He was right, and we both knew it. Remember Diana's engagement dinner? Henry continued. You paid for everything, and he invited Tessa as proof we're adults. The ski trip you planned then canceled because Tessa needed help moving. Your promotion night you skipped because Tessa had an existential crisis about centerpieces. This, not new, just louder. The pattern rose out of the steam of my pasta like a ghost. I'm an idiot, I said, and the room didn't deny it. You're kind, Henry corrected. He takes advantage of kind. We talked until the restaurant dimmed and the staff stacked chairs, our laughter turning sharp at the edges. Nothing physical happened. That wasn't the point. Clarity was. Friday morning, I rented a U-Haul. The sky was a white sheet at the window, and the hallway smelled like old vinyl and someone else's toast. Miles's things weren't much when they weren't scattered on my life. Clothes he forgot to hang, the espresso machine he insisted on and never cleaned, the Peloton he used twice but cited often, artwork he'd bought with my credit card because we needed to upgrade. I packed quietly, carefully, the way you handle something dangerous. Sharpie labels kept me from crying. Miles. Closet. Miles. Bathroom. Miles. May see. I loaded everything and drove to Diana's. She opened the door in slippers and confusion. Sloane, what's all this? Miles's things, I said gently. He'll need them when he gets back Sunday. Why would he wait? What? She looked from me to the boxes like they might answer for themselves. He didn't tell you? I asked, and kindness tasted like steel. He's at his ex's wedding, as her plus one. Diana's mouth opened and closed like a patient learning a diagnosis. He told Mom it was a work thing. Phoenix, I said, check his Instagram. I left her in the doorway, framed by the boxes of her brother's habits, already thumbing her phone with rising disbelief. In the truck, I breathed. It sounded like someone else's weather. Saturday night, Henry and I had dinner. Not a date, a two-person debrief. We took a selfie, two adults eating food, nothing scandalous. I posted it to my story because the truth didn't need captions. My phone detonated. Miles, what the hell is this? Miles, are you on a date with Henry? Miles, answer your phone right now. This is so immature. Miles, I can't believe you'd do this to get back at me. It's not the same thing. I didn't respond. He had flown across state lines to be another woman's date because image. I had eaten gnocchi with a friend because clarity. The equivalence failed the math. Sunday afternoon, I was sitting in a blessedly empty apartment, sunlight laying safe shapes on the floor, when the door flew open. Miles stood there, hair a travel day mess, eyes a storm with nowhere to go. He took in the blank walls, the hollow closet, the absence of his reflection in my things. Where is everything? His voice cracked. Where's my stuff? At Diana's, I said. You move my stuff into my sister's? He looked betrayed by a law of physics. Sloan, you can't. I live here. Lived, I said softly. Past tense. Because I went to a wedding? Are you that insecure? He was reaching for an old script with missing pages. No, I watched the words land. Because you thought it was appropriate to be another woman's date while in a relationship with me. Because you lied to your family about where you were. Because you've been prioritizing Tessa for 3 years and calling it maturity. That's not... You're twisting this. His phone lit up. His eyes flicked to it like muscle memory. Those photos are out of context. Which ones? I asked. The one where you're in 17 shots with the bride, or the video where you reach for the bouquet? His face flushed the color of a stoplight. It was an accident. You don't accidentally lean forward and extend your hand. I held his gaze, steady as a level. This isn't punishment, Miles. It's alignment. You told me who you were. I'm listening. He tried a final pivot. I love you. I love the person I thought you were, I said. The one who respected us. Something in him collapsed, less like a building and more like a tent when the pole is pulled. He looked around at the naked quiet as if the apartment would contradict me. It did not. He left with a curse I didn't keep. The door clicked. The silence returned. I sat on the floor in the middle of the room and let the stillness gather around me like a new kind of furniture. That night, I slept without dreams. In the morning, the light found the place where his record player had lived and turned it into a meadow. Monday arrived like a clean page, and Miles tried to write on it with a crayon. My phone lit up at 8:13 a.m. with Barbara's name, his mother, the perennial peacekeeper, with a megaphone. Speakerphone hum behind her, his father's low cough. Sloan, honey, Barbara said, sugary concern poured over gravel. Miles is hysterical. What on earth happened? He flew to his ex-girlfriend's wedding as her plus one, I said, sliding my key card at the office turnstile. So I ended the relationship. He said it was just as friends, Barbara replied. In the background, his father muttered, optics. Barbara, I asked gently, if I flew to my ex-boyfriend's wedding as his date, would Miles be okay with that? Silence stretched long enough to become a mirror. That's what I thought, I said softly, and ended the call before she could translate my clarity into rudeness. By lunch, the flying monkeys had mobilized. Group chats pinged with women I'd hosted, fed, comforted, acquaintances of convenience who suddenly discovered emergency ethics. Leah, you're punishing a confident man for having female friends. This is toxic. Jade, men and women can be friends. Grow up. Anya, it was the mature thing to do. You're overreacting. I answered exactly one. Me. He told his family he was at a work conference. If it was innocent, why lie? The thread went quiet in a hurry, like a party after the lights come on. At 3:05 p.m., I got a call from downstairs. Security. Ms. Hart, there's a gentleman in the lobby, refusing to leave, demanding to see you. I stared at the elevator's closed doors and saw the hallway in my mind. Polished floor, potted ficus, Miles's rehearsed indignation. Don't let him up, I said. If necessary, call the police. When I finally walked to the lobby with Kyle from security flanking me, Miles was pacing, volume up for an audience. A receptionist watched like a lifeguard anticipating a slip. "We need to talk," he said, planting himself in the path of my patience. "You can't just throw away 3 years." "You threw them," I said. The room went quiet in the way rooms do when truth elbows through. I only stepped out of the way. He reached for my arm, and Kyle stepped between us, a smooth wall in a pressed blazer. "Sir, this is a place of business." Miles threw me a look he used to save for traffic. "Sloan, you are being dramatic." "Security will escort you out," I said. "If you come back, they'll trespass you. If you show up at my apartment, the police will handle it." "This is insane," he scoffed, but the laugh sounded like it needed a cane. Kyle guided him toward the doors. The glass swallowed him whole. Upstairs, Regina, my manager, tilted her head into my doorway. "Personal issue?" "Ex-boyfriend," I said. "He's having trouble with the ex part." "You need anything?" "It's handled," I said, and in a way that surprised me, it was. That evening, the text leaned financial. Entitlement dressed as arithmetic. "Miles, you owe me half of rent for this month." "Miles, I paid for groceries last week." "Miles, my Peloton is worth $2,000. Total you owe me $3,275. I expect payment by Friday." I sent one message back. "Me, the Peloton you bought with my credit card, the groceries that cost $73, the rent you haven't paid in 6 months. See small claims court." He didn't reply, not to me anyway. Wednesday, a different number. Unknown, but not unfamiliar. Tessa. "Hey, Miles is really upset. This is my fault. The wedding was innocent. Can you guys talk?" The woman who had used my relationship as an exhibit in her museum of optics wanted to curate a reconciliation. I answered with the kind of courtesy that doubles as a boundary. "Me, the man who convinced his ex to be his wedding date wants me to take him back. That's rich. How's your new husband feeling about Miles staying at your place?" No bubbles appeared. Silence hummed, and I imagined it at her kitchen table, humming between place settings. Thursday morning, the tone turned dark. My stomach went cold and clinical. There is a difference between a plea and a lever. One asks for help, the other pulls at your spine. I took a screenshot. I dialed 911 and requested a wellness check at the address where I knew he was staying. Tessa's townhouse, the one with the tasteful wreath. The officer called me later. "He's fine," the voice said, firm but not unkind. "We made contact, nothing emergent." I could almost hear the new wife's eyes widen when the police arrived at her door. By evening, Henry texted, "If I listen closely, I can hear a marriage cracking on the far side of town." "Not our job to sweep the shards," I wrote back. Friday was the morning I woke up and realized the air in my apartment had learned my name. I made coffee in a machine that simply made coffee, not 17 kinds of artisanal personality. The sunlight poured itself into the empty picture hooks on the wall like it wanted to live here, and I let it. Then Miles tried spin. A long, rambling Facebook post bloomed on my screen, the kind of public diary entry that weaponizes hashtags. "Some people can't handle confident men with female friends. Jealousy destroys relationships. I'm choosing healing." I could taste the projection like salt. Henry sent me a screenshot, captioned with a string of deadpan skulls, then posted a comment under Miles's manifesto. "Confident men don't lie to their families about attending their ex's wedding as her date. Healing from toxic behavior starts with acknowledging your own." The post vanished within the hour, as if the internet had a conscience and a broom. By afternoon, Barbara tried a second campaign. "Sweetheart," she began, breathless, "Miles says you're freezing him out. He's devastated." "Barbara, hold on to that word," I said. "It's what I felt when he put me on ice for 3 years every time Tessa snapped." "You're being cruel," she whispered. "No," I said, and it surprised me how softly it came out. "I'm being clear." That weekend, I drove out to Diana's with a box he'd missed, the last evidence of his life blended into mine, a drawer of tangled cords and ambition. Diana opened the door. Her face had the shell-shocked look of someone who's been rearranging furniture in her head. "He told Mom it was a work trip," she said, exhaling laughter without joy. "A work trip." "If this is news to you," I said, lifting the box, "imagine what it's like for me." She stepped aside and touched my arm in that quiet, clean way. "Some women do when they are choosing you." "I'm sorry," she said. "For my brother. He's been like this since—" She didn't finish. Childhood is a country with poor maps. On Sunday night, my phone pulsed at 10:41 p.m. Unknown number again. "Miles, you ruined everything. Tessa's husband is furious you called the cops." "Me, I didn't. I called a wellness check because you threatened self-harm. I'll always do that. It's what adults do when they hear that. It's also what adults do when exes show up in lobbies. I expected rage. I got strategy. Monday morning, Shirley from HR knocked on my office door with the expression of a woman whose coffee had been replaced by a lawsuit. Ms. Hart, we received a complaint from a Miles Harper stating you're harassing him and that you stole property from a joint residence. He claims you worked together. I couldn't help it. I laughed. He's never worked here, I said. I have documentation of his harassment if you need it. Shirley rubbed her temples. Would you send it to me? I handed over everything. The lobby incident report from security, the trespass warning, the texts, the wellness check report number, the screenshot of a bouquet eager hand. She read as if the papers were a storm forecast and she needed to decide whether to close the schools. We'll send a cease and desist, she said at last, and notify building security that he is not permitted on premises. Thank you, I said, and meant it for more than the paperwork. That night, a new circus tent went up across the internet. A fundraiser. Help me escape my abusive ex, the headline declared, over a photo of Miles cropped at a holy angle. His story inverted mine until it looked like a Rorschach. I had isolated him from friends, controlled finances, thrown him out for attending a family wedding. It had raised $300 before Henry texted, "You seeing this?" I filed a report with the platform, attached receipts, literal and figurative. 2 hours later, the page was gone, pulled like a bad tooth. The best part? A $5 donation left behind a public comment. Maybe don't invite other women to be your date at your own wedding. Tessa's wife. Henry and I didn't gloat. Not really. We just shared a silence that sounded like a door clicking shut for someone else, somewhere else. By midweek, my world felt measured again. Then, Wednesday night, I stood in my doorway and saw the 1-inch gap where my deadbolt sat flush the night before. A hairline difference only a person who lives alone would notice. Paranoia? Maybe, or intuition with a badge. I installed a small camera above the entry, a quiet eye that blinked red once and went to work. The next day, I left for the office with the easy gait of someone who trusts her future and returned to find my living room. Wrong. Not ruined. Shifted. The couch a half-inch forward, the framed print tilted 3 degrees, books in a new order, author, not title. It was such a subtle violence I almost admired it. Almost. The camera's footage ended the guessing. At 2:03 p.m., Miles let himself in with a spare key he'd made behind my back. He didn't steal. He curated. A ghost rearranging knives to point east. I called the police. I sent the video. They didn't need me to translate. At Diana's house that evening, a knock at the door became bracelets. Breaking and entering looks different when it's performed in whispers, but the charge wears the same name tag. Diana texted me afterwards. I'm done, she wrote. He can figure this out himself. Mom and Dad are done too. 2 hours later, my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize and a voice I'd never heard. It was low and tired. This is Officer Cardenas, she said. We've processed the report. If he contacts you again, you call. If he comes near you, you call. Understand? I do. I slept with the camera light blinking like a benign star and dreamed of rooms that stayed where you left them. 2 months later, the world felt smaller in the best way, like I'd cleaned out an attic in my chest and found it full of light. Miles, however, didn't share the peace. He pled down to misdemeanor trespassing, received 6 months probation and community service. His lawyer must have been exhausted. After the hearing, I saw him once more, across the courthouse parking lot, clutching a folder that couldn't hold his shame. He didn't look at me. Maybe he finally understood that attention was no longer currency. Through the grapevine, I learned the rest. He'd moved back in with his parents in Tucson. Tessa's marriage had disintegrated before their wedding photos finished uploading. Diana stopped answering his calls. His friends, the ones who once texted me about toxic women, quietly removed him from group chats. The universe has a sense of symmetry when you stop trying to edit it. I didn't celebrate, I repainted. The agreeable gray he loved, that neutral nothing color that pretends to be calm while smothering everything, became navy, rich, certain, the shade of nights that hold you instead of hiding you. Then I did something small and almost holy. I bought a coffee maker that just makes coffee. No foamy presets, no self-congratulating espresso art. Just the smell of morning and the sound of beginning again. Henry stopped by a week later with a cardboard box of leftover hardware. You redecorated, he said, looking around. I reclaimed, I corrected. He laughed. Semantics. Boundaries, I said. We didn't cross any. We didn't need to. Some friendships earn their quiet more than romance ever could. A month later, Henry introduced me to his cousin Liam, a landscape photographer with sunburned hands and a vocabulary for silence. We went out 3 times. Nothing earth-shattering. Dinner, laughter, the soft uncertainty of 2 people deciding whether to start a story or just appreciate the prologue. He asked about the Miles situation once, carefully. I told him the truth in 3 sentences and a smile that said the weather has passed. He nodded, not with pity, but with comprehension. That, I realized, was rare. Last week, Diana texted me a photo. Miles's old note, the one I'd left taped to the empty counter when I moved his things out. It read, "You were right. This is what mature people do. They move on." He'd kept it, or hoarded it, or hated it. Hard to tell. Diana found it crumpled in a shoebox with red pen marks all over it. Words like immature, vindictive, cold. She'd sent the picture with a single line. Guess he still doesn't get irony. I laughed out loud, the sound full and clean. Yesterday morning, as I checked emails with coffee in hand, a notification blinked on my screen. LinkedIn request. Miles Harper. Message attached. Hope you're well. I've grown a lot. Coffee sometime? I stared at it for exactly 3 seconds, then took a screenshot for the restraining order file and hit block. Growth isn't sending invitations to the person you wounded. It's letting them exist without needing their witness. The apartment is quiet now. Not empty, just honest. The light hits the wall and stays. My only decision left? Forest green or navy for the bedroom. Liam says green. Maybe I'll compromise with both. Because I've learned you can outgrow someone without hating them. You can reclaim the story without rewriting it. And you can walk away without burning the house, just by turning on the light.